Hi there, BookTube. It's Ros, and I am thrilled and delighted to be making one of my favourite videos of the year, because this is the Victober announcement video. Now, if you've clicked on this, you probably know all about Victober, and you're as eagerly anticipating it as I am. But just in case you're wondering, what's this Victober business you're going on about, Ros? It's a month-long readathon reading event in October that's all about reading Victorian literature. And so that's British or Irish literature written or published between 1837 and 1901, so the reign of Queen Victoria. And this Victober is extra special because it's actually the 10th. Would you believe it's the 10th year that Victober has happened, and we're trying to make it extra specially exciting as a result. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about who the hosts are. I'm going to talk about the group read. I'm going to talk about the Discord server where the best discussion happens, and I'm going to go through all the host challenges and then say a little bit more about my challenge in particular. So that's the pattern, and I'll put in some timestamps to help you find your way around to those things. So let's start with the hosts. Now, there are two hosts who have been ever present in all 10 Victobers, or all 9 up to now, and now this 10th one. And those are Katie of Books and Things and Kate Howe of Kate Howe Reads. Now, there have been other hosts over the years, and 3 years ago, Marissa of Blatantly Bookish and I joined Kate and Katie, and so this will be our fourth Victober as host. But we're going wild this year. It's the 10th Victober, so we've got 10 hosts, so 6 more lovely, exciting, wonderful hosts to tell you about. I will run through them quickly and mention their channel names. So there's Hannah of Hannah's Books. There's Jess. Well, now I say channel name, but Jess of Dickens and Docs is our Instagram champion. She also has a channel where she's going to put a couple of things on BookTube this month, but you will mostly find her on Bookstagram, as they call it. Then we've got Elizabeth, the literary princess, Roy of Roy Reads Anything, Milena of Milena Reads, and Catherine of Take Tea with Catherine. So it's exciting because all 10 of us love Victorian literature, but we all have slightly different sort of particular enthusiasms or takes on it. So it's going to be an extra diverse Victober, I think. Now, what do you need to do to take part? All you have to do to be a Victoberite is read one work of Victorian literature during the month of October, and that could be, a big fat novel or a single poem. The other thing that I would urge you to do is join us on Discord. There's a very lively Discord server for Victober that's been running for I think 3 years now, and Discord, if you don't already use it, is free. You can use it on phone, PC, laptop, whatever. It looks complicated, and then once you start using it, you realise it's really easy. It's very user-friendly and ideal for something like Victober, where there's a lot of different sort of challenges and group reasons, different things to talk about, and we can create channels for each of them and sort of discussion threads. So I will put an invitation in the show notes below. Now then, I mentioned the group read, didn't I? And if you are part already of the group on Discord, you will already know what our group read is, because the poll to choose our group read happened on Discord and was very contentious and closely fought. But the book that got the most votes in the end, I'm delighted to say, is Hester by Margaret Oliphant, because this is an oldish copy. It calls her Mrs. Oliphant, but she had a name, Margaret, and she was a Scottish writer who was born 1828 and lived to 1897, so slap bang Victorian. Wrote a number of books. This will be my first book by her, that I've read by her. It's an interesting and intriguing book because it's got really strong central female characters. The two central characters are Catherine Vernon, who's head of the family bank, very strong-minded figure, and a powerful woman, but 14-year-old Hester, her who's a young relation of hers, comes to live sort of with her or in her sort of sphere of influence, and turns out to be an equally strong-minded woman. And we see, Hester growing up. It's a bit of a sort of family saga, I guess, and how the relationship between Catherine and Hester develops. So that's the book. It's a sort of typical Victorian novel, and it's about 500 pages long. 45 chapters. We're going to be reading 2 chapters a day from the 1st to the 21st of September, and then 3 chapters on the final day, the 22nd. And, do join us. There's guaranteed to be very lively discussion, and I've heard very, very positive things about this as a book and Margaret Oliphant as an author. So that's a group read. What about the challenges? Now, when I said there were 10 hosts, you probably started to think, oh my goodness, does that mean there are 10 challenges? Yes, it does. But we are not monsters. We've not set you, a completely impossible goal, because lots of the challenges lend themselves to a bit of doubling up, and some of them can be met very successfully through a shorter work, a short story or a poem, or a play or something. So we're not saying read 10 big fat Victorian novels in a month. That's not the idea. This is meant to be fun and to sort of expand your Victorian literary horizons, I suppose. So let's start with working through the challenges. And what I should say is that each challenge comes from one host, and if you go to that host's announcement video, which I will I will link all their channels below, you will get more suggestions and more about their individual challenge, but I will kind of give you a quick summary of all 10. So there is Kate's challenge. Kate's challenge is to read a work of Victorian literature of any length where friendship is featured. And, Victorian novels are not all about romance. Friendship was really important into the Victorians, I think. And, there's lots of scope, because it's one of those prompts where you could pick a book that's predominantly about that, but also there are going to be many, many ones where it's one of the themes, and Kate will have some great suggestions for you. And I think the group read possibly would meet that challenge. Then Katie's challenge, she is revisiting the challenge that she set in the very first Victober. So, as a 10th anniversary celebration. And that challenge is to read a work of Victorian literature that is not a novel. So you could, if you wanted, read some sort of fat tome of Victorian non-fiction, but you've got the choice of reading a poem, reading a short story. Oh, the Victorians love their short stories. Reading a play, reading an essay. Multiple lovely choices, and Katie will have some brilliant suggestions for you. Marissa's challenge is to read a work of Victorian literature where a character experiences a change in class or status. Now, that's an interesting one, because it's a frequent theme in Victorian books, whether that's moving up or down the social scale. Anything from, rags to riches, fallen women, marrying well, or desperately trying to hang on to your status and slipping into genteel poverty. All of those stories, themes come up in Victorian literature, and Marissa will have suggestions for you. But, it is one that you could, yes, as I say, fulfill through a short story, say, or a play. Now, my challenge is called Empire Spotting, and I'm inviting you to see how many times you can spot a reference to the British Empire in your Victober reading. And I will say a bit more about that sort of as the last thing in this video. But this is not a challenge about reading a specific work necessarily. It's about looking out for the impact of the empire on Victorian literature and Victorian life. Elizabeth's challenge is to read a work by an underrated Victorian woman writer. So not the Brontes, not Elizabeth Gaskell, not George Eliot and so on. So the group read is a gift for that one, isn't it? But if you don't do the group read, there are lots of other underrated women writers in Victorian literature that you could turn to, and Elizabeth will have suggestions for you. Hannah's challenge is to read a Victorian work that discusses education. Now, this is another one that leaves you with loads of possibilities because, it's anything that features a school, a governess, a self-made, self-educated person, like Jude the Obscure. It's new woman fiction very often has education as a theme, the lack of it for women, or the lack of purpose of it for women. Comes up again and again. So, and Hannah will have suggestions for you, but education definitely features in this one, I'm just saying. Jess's challenge is a lovely one because it's to step back in time, read a Victorian work that is set in a different era. Now, the Victorians loved setting their novels and their plays and their short stories in historical times, whether medieval, that's quite a one for their poetry, or more kind of like historical fiction, like A Tale of Two Cities, or so again, lots of exciting options. Milena's challenge is different again because she's inviting you to spin a digital colour wheel, and when you've got a colour, to read something that has that colour featuring on the cover. Fortunately, lots of Victorian works are available in multiple editions, so if without stretching a point too much, you could pick a different edition that does have the colour on it if you're struggling to get through all your problems. But it's a fun one, isn't it? Roy's challenge is to read a Victorian work of fantasy. Now, the Victorians really enjoyed writing about fantasy, science fiction, all sorts of fantastic things, and they did that in novels, but they also did it in short stories. So, and even, sorry about noises off, I think something got dropped. So there's full-length options, but if anything, this challenge is a particular gift to choose an interesting short story, and I know Roy will have some brilliant suggestions for you. Then, Catherine's challenge. Catherine's challenge brings together kind of two booktube wonderful events, Jane Austen July and Victober, because it's celebrating the fact that 2025 is not only the 10th of October, but the 250th anniversary of the birth of Jane Austen. And her challenge is to read a Victorian work that has some kind of connection with Jane Austen. Now, if that sounds a bit like, oh my goodness, what on earth? There is an argument that this one possibly meets that criteria. But Catherine will have loads more suggestions and hints for you in her video. So, 10 brilliant, wonderful, exciting challenges. But because we recognise that we want Victober to be accessible, and we recognise that 10 challenges is a lot, we've also kind of created some challenge levels for you to aspire to. Okay, so if you read between 1 and 3 things that meet a challenge, so or you meet between 1 and 3 challenges, you will achieve Mr. Micawber level, because Mr. Micawber, tried hard, but never quite made what he hoped to. So you're a Mr. Micawber if you do 1 to 3. If our next level scale on the scale of success, the challenge scale of success, is 4 to 6 things, and that makes you a Jane Eyre. You get the Jane Eyre award if you do that many, because she was a pretty smart woman and pretty determined. So Jane Eyre it is. But if you do 7 to 10 challenges, you are obviously approaching genius level. So you get to you get the Sherlock Holmes award for being a bit of a genius. If you do all 10, you obviously need to be some kind of superhuman being. So that is Dracula level, and we'll share all of our levels of success on the Discord server. As there will also be a Discord channel for each challenge. So you'll find more suggestions and recommendations from each other in those groups. So I promised, didn't I, to say a bit more about my own challenge, and I want you to see this as kind of like a literary scavenger hunt, okay? And as you do your Victorian reading, to just keep your eyes and ears open for things that reference the empire or the impact of the empire or people's connection with the empire. So that could be, you could read a book that is set in somewhere around it, sort of elsewhere in the British Empire, and that could be Ireland, because Ireland was Britain's first colony. Remember, it could be in something from British India. Kim would be an example. Now that came out. The full book came out in 1902, but it started being serialised in monthly serialisation in 1901. So Kim is in. So Kipling, that is. So that's an option. But really, I'm not expecting you to read a specific book, as I say, for this challenge. It's more thinking, this character's just come back from where? I think it might have been South Africa. That's our mutual friend. This character, back to Mr. Micawber, is getting packed off to Australia because he's slightly failed in the UK, but let's see if he can make a better life out there. Is it that a character where has their fortune come from? Where are they? Where have they made their money, or where did their family make their money? Was it somewhere around the empire? What are characters eating and drinking and wearing? Are they drinking tea? Are they drinking rum? Are they eating something that has sugar in it? All imperial products. What about, are they wearing muslin? Are they wearing a cashmere shawl? Do they have a Malacca cane? Do they keeping precious things in a teak or mahogany box? So many things. Are they using a loan word like pyjamas or bungalow or well, there are so many of those. Are they, is there an Irish connection? Because as I say, remember, you could read an Irish writer or, so multiple choices. What I want is that people will capture those and stick them in the channel that we're going to have on Discord for this challenge, and we'll gradually build up a picture of just how embedded the impact of having a huge overseas empire was on Britain, British literature, British society, British life, even for people who never set foot outside the United Kingdom, how intertwined their lives were with the fact of the British Empire. Sherlock Holmes is a good one. You wouldn't believe how many of his Sherlock Holmes short stories have characters who got an imperial connection. So I'll challenge you to spot all of that and bring it and share it. So that's Victober in a nutshell. Well, in 20 minutes, and it's going to be brilliant. And I'm really, really looking forward to enjoying it myself and enjoying it with you.